and welcome to an evening of wreath making and Christmas decorating here at a very festive Holkham Hall in Norfolk. My name's Jessica Doyle. I'm the Design and Interiors Editor at the Telegraph, and I'm joined this evening by Katie Haydn-Slater, founder of Wild Oak Workshops, who's going to be teaching us how to switch off from the pressures of everyday life and make a magical Christmas wreath from scratch. Katie's using all natural materials that she's foraged from the woodlands here at Holkham. And later on, I'll be joined by the Countess of Leicester and Christmas connoisseur Catherine Zoll, who together have designed the spectacular decorations here at the hall. And they'll be sharing some tips and hacks that you can use in your own homes. If you do make a wreath with us this evening, do please share your pictures on social media and tag them at Telegraph_live. We'd love to see your masterpieces. And thank you to everyone who submitted questions ahead of this evening. I'll be putting them to Katie during the demonstration. First off, Katie, do you know where the custom of hanging a wreath on your door originated from?
Yes, it's a wonderful ancient pagan ritual. We're using this gorgeous willow wreath, which is the circle, an eternal shape that when you apply evergreen attached in a circular formation, it then has this wonderful circle of life. They would then encourage, whilst we were walking out in nature, to gather as you walk, attach it to this wonderful circle and apply it to your front door to ward off all of the winter spirits with your evergreen wreath.
Great. And can you talk us through the materials that you'll be using this evening?
Sure, no problem. This is a wonderful willow wreath. It is will be with you forever. It's completely relovable, so we use it all the way through the year. You'll be learning the techniques that you can use for Easter or autumn or winter, and it's yours to keep forever. We also use green twine, which is totally biodegradable. So we're going to be attaching everything. This is our wonderful moss, which I gather from my garden, my roof, and my local woodland with permission. And we can talk about that later. You'll have some very long green twine wires, which are brilliant to be attaching all of our gorgeous Christmas ingredients. Pine cones, gorgeous orange slices, which remind you of marmalade, lime slices, apple slices, cinnamon sticks, that wonderful smell of Christmas, and these wonderful spiky things called teasels. They are a fantastic sculptural wild look in your wreath, which we'll be attaching at the end.
And just a word on where you can source materials from if you don't have access to woodlands or you don't have that much in your garden.
Yes.
Where would you recommend people try?
Yes, so garden centres and florists will be able to give you a lovely bag of moss, which is all very floristry friendly, so it's all from sustainable suppliers. You're very welcome to either ask them, but you can go online and get green wires, floristry wires, get nice long ones. Pine cones, I'm always encouraging you to go out into the woods and harvest. So ideally, I'd love you to wander anywhere you like. You'll notice that it's wet at the moment, so they'll all snap shut, but just bring them in and pop them on your radiators and you'll hear that wonderful crackle pop as they start to dry. And then these I order from wonderful professionals who kiln dry. I have tried to bake and dry them in my oven. It's taken like 3 days, so it's a ridiculous use of electricity. And the problem with ovens is it kind of jams them, not dries them. So the professionals, I refer to professionals who kiln dry them, and you'll be able to go online and just put in dried fruit for Christmas, and you'll be able to get a bag of them. And then teasels, yes, my daughter has banned me from wandering around the roads in Norfolk because her friends keep on thinking that it's very embarrassing watching mummy wandering around. But teasels are everywhere. They're in car parks. They love very poor soil, so you'll see them in building sites, car parks. So if you don't mind being seen wandering around places, they are everywhere, and the birds absolutely love them.
Yeah. Can you show us how you would start to make the base for the wreath?
Yes, of course. So everybody who's ordered them, you will receive your lovely willow wreath, and it will have a string, which is how you're going to attach it to your front door. And whilst we're making the wreath, I'll be asking you to find your string, because that's your top of your ring. But at the moment, we're going to start off by applying this divine moss, which I absolutely adore smelling. It's just the woodland floor. And we're going to apply it by winding it with this twine. So it doesn't matter where you attach your string, you just need to attach it with a nice strong double knot. There we go, anywhere you like on the wreath. And what I'm going to suggest is always keep your twine really, really tight near the wreath. If it's long, you start to get completely entangled up. So keep it nice and tight. And what you're going to do is you're going to put your twine at the top of your wreath, and you're going to be turning the wire over like that. So you're going to go from top to bottom. And it's as simple as gathering some beautiful piece of moss, with or without stick. You might even have a little bit of beetles and bugs in it, which I love. And you're going to apply it onto the top of your wreath like that. And then what you do is you pull the wires over, the string over, and you do it twice. Really give it a nice tight tension, and then you come over to the next little pile of moss, and you're going to secure it really tightly. And this always needs to have really strong tension. Then if you're nice and tight, you've done it twice, you can release it and go back and get a lovely next handle of your gorgeous moss. It's the most wonderful substance to be working with. You can smell the woodland and the woodland floor. And of course, this is the most fantastic plant to capture water.
Is that what helps to keep the wreath fresh, the moss base? Yeah.
So this is a willow base with moss, and what we're using is lots of evergreen, so it really doesn't need much watering at all. At the moment, winter, they're designed to be pretty much left to their own devices in the woodlands. So it's not like floristry in the summertime where you need a lot of water. So this really is just making it lovely and damp woodland experience, just to give a little bit of extra moisture, but you won't need to do anything else until New Year, when I suggest you take it off your front door, bring it into your home, maybe put a candle in the middle, in glass, so that you don't burn your house down.
And when do you think is the best time to put your wreath up?
It just depends. If you're going to have, this will last for a month, 6 weeks. Obviously, if it's outside in the cooler elements, it will last very well. If you wanted to bring it inside, or if you haven't got a front door to show it off, and actually you'd like to bring it inside and look at it all the time, you could hang it over a fireplace, you could hang it in a room where you're always there and you can appreciate it and look at your lovely wreath. So it can be brought inside, and it will last exactly the same length of time. So I would say 4 to 6 weeks. So you can either do it on the 1st of December, like we are doing, or then there's the 24th of November, taking it up to Christmas Day. But for me, the minute December starts, it's all stations Christmas, I think, yeah.
And would you need to spray it with water or anything while it's up, or just the evergreen should be fine?
What we've done is we've made this wonderful nest of evergreen, but then we're attaching dried elements on the top. So if you started to spray, you'll then make all of the wonderful dry things a little bit soggy. In the olden days, when I did use oasis bases, yes, I would encourage people to water the oasis, but now we don't use oasis anymore. We use lots of wonderful biodegradable materials, and so this is a different way of doing your wreath. So I'm just going to put one more lovely clump.
We've had quite an interesting question, Katie. Are there any materials that might be thought of as unlucky by someone who might be superstitious?
Yes, I think the one I definitely know about are peacock feathers. However beautiful they are, they should probably stay on the birdie. The Egyptians would use it in their headdresses to ward off evil and as a protection. And there is definitely a school of thought that peacock feathers are not to be encouraged in the home. And lilac also, for some reason, lilac is also seen as unlucky, and to leave it on the trees and appreciate it out in nature.
But all these lovely evergreen foliage, that's all?
No, this is exactly what we should be doing. You know, in ancient times, we would be going out into the woods, looking at what was happening in nature, and this is what we would see. And so you would be just gathering a little armful, be a wonderful thing to do with children, and then you'd bring it back, and then you just make it into this wonderful circle, this evergreen. Mm-hmm. So there is your lovely moss wreath, and we've still kept the string attached, so you don't need to disconnect quite yet. And there's the twine at the back. So if you imagine it, if you're looking down on your wreath, that would be 12 o'clock. Mm-hmm. So we've done our wonderful moss. No beetles today, but you never know. And now we're going to go and start to attach all this wonderful greenery. So yes, I've been out in the estate here, which obviously has the abundance of fantastic spruce, but it's also, I walk my doggies in local woodlands and they're everywhere. And what I specifically do is I gather from the forest floor. Mm-hmm. So whatever Mother Nature drops to the forest floor, that's what I gather. Mm-hmm. And the trees are brilliant right at the moment with these strong winds and heavy rain. They are instinctively getting rid of any of their broken branches and dropping it to the forest floor because, of course, traditionally these would be covered in snow. They're alpine plants, so they would be wanting to prepare for winter in case they were covered in snow. So this is what I gather from the forest floor. And you will receive, or you can go and gather, lovely branches. And what we need to do, where are my scissors? Here we are. I have red scissors because my bonfire's probably got 20 green scissors which are still disappeared in the pile, so I use red scissors now. And what you need to do is try and find sizes of hand size. It's the easiest way to cut it. Nice and relaxed. That you can still keep. There we go, lots of lovely pile of it, and then I've got my lovely pile here, and then, so that's the spruce evergreen, very, very hardy. Mm-hmm. That's all you need to do, just cut it in. And what we're going to do is we're going to cut everything first into lovely big piles, and then we're going to bring them together in little posies and apply, as opposed to doing it each individual. You just can't really get going with the rhythm of it all. Yeah. So that, for example, is your spruce. And then this is a florist's best friend. It's the most wonderful thing called buried ivy. Mm-hmm. It has this wonderful movement to it, quivering movement to it, so it makes your wreath beautifully natural looking. Mm-hmm. I'm a beekeeper, and ivy often gets a terribly bad press. We need to rip it off, burn it, and get rid of it. But actually, it's the most crucial thing to have in your garden. You could just have a wonderful green garden of just ivy. Mm-hmm. In the autumn time, this is flowering ivy. There's a little bee called the ivy bee, which is specially designed to just feed off the nectar on an ivy flower. And now it's going on to buried ivy, and you'll see wood pigeons just throwing themselves at walls of ivy, and they're just gorging on this wonderful berries. And we love it because it's very easy, it's very hardy, very sturdy plant, which we can add to our gorgeous wreaths. So again, you can go out into the woodlands and pick it. Mm-hmm. And it's absolutely everywhere, and it comes in these lovely branches, but very cleverly, it's almost hand-shaped where the wood finishes and the lovely greenery starts. So we will just cut that, and I like to go like that, throw it in. Very Jamie Oliver, relax. And all the lovely little bits you snip off into kind of hand size. Mm-hmm. Don't need to strip the ends or anything. It's very lovely and relaxed. So also I went out to the most gorgeous kitchen gardens here at Holkham, and using herbs is a most wonderful way of accentuating the flavours and the smells in your wreath. Mm-hmm. Today we have got rosemary. They border all of their kitchen gardens with herbs, so it's absolutely amazing, covered in bees throughout the year. Rosemary has a wonderful symbolism for remembrance, often used in funerals, but actually it's to do with memory, remembering. Absolutely smells gorgeous.
Yeah, it really
And as you can hear from that crack, it's very woody, so it's very, very hardy herb. And we're going to be using it to accent our wreaths while we're working. So we're going to add a little pile there, right there, and then bay, this wonderful bay leaves. You may well have a bay plant in your garden. Again, the most stunningly aromatic smell, but again, a lovely woody plant, so very hardy and very robust to put in our wreaths. And so again, we're going to cut all of those into a little bit shorter, hand size, again, to go with our, I think it's probably going to be about 10 little bunches that we're going to be using. So therefore, we've got our 4 ingredients. You'd be amazed how much greenery you use. Equally, if you're deciding to prune your garden for a winter trim, don't throw it away. Put it on your lovely wreath. You'll be amazed. Now all of my clients are like screeching to a halt going, oh, there's that ivy which Katie was talking about. So it's everywhere. If you just open your eyes, nature is surrounding us all the time.
And so I suppose the amount of foliage that you'll need will depend on the size of the wreath that you're making. What's the size of the base that you use, the willow base?
Yeah. So today we're using, it's about a 10, 11 inch base, sort of almost 30 centimetres. And that's going to expand out to make it a much more bushier wreath, but it will work on everybody's door, and it also means that if you wanted to bring it in and put it on your table for New Year, maybe go out into nature and harvest a little bit more greenery and add some more bits and put a wonderful glass candle, wind it with fairy lights, it will go on your table, maybe your hall table or something. Equally, you could give it to a friend as a New Year's Eve gift, maybe. So yes, we've got our beautiful mossed willow wreath, and now we're going to gather all of these into posies, basically. So you make a little gathering of spruce, bay, divine rosemary, and then a nice couple of jingly bits of ivy. And then, keeping your wire lovely, your twine really lovely and tight, you're going to lay this posy on top of the wreath. Okay, so not sticking up like Pocahontas, but
so a bit of an angle.
On a slant.
Yeah.
And then again, nice and tight, keeping your finger holding on, and that's where it's going to have a little bit of contact with that lovely moss. You bring your wire, your twine over, and you really nice tension, and I'm going to suggest you do it 3 times, please. Look at that. So 3 times, and then you can let go. And then you go to your next posy. So it doesn't matter if you have a little bit of stalk showing there, because it's going to all get covered up as you work. Then you put your lovely bay, most amazing smells of rosemary, and then these gorgeous jiggly bits of ivy, buried ivy. So again, you've got your short end, and instead of going to the front, which you might instinctively do, you're going to cover your tracks, basically. You're going to cover over where you've put your twine. You're going to come over maybe another couple of inches, and you're going to lay the next posy over. So you're basically covering everything where you've just been. And again, nice and tight. Holding onto your wreath and your greenery, and just winding 3 times the same point. Great. You hear that sort of creak of the string. That's how tight you want to do. There's lots of noises going on in my workshops. So you've got to be quite robust.
And so the posies are all sort of facing in a similar direction as you put them on.
That's absolutely right, because It's a gorgeous look. It gives that continuous movement of shape, very much like a Catherine wheel of fireworks. And again, just like birds' wings, which cover each other over, you cover your tracks, so you don't see any ends of the stalks. So it's all beautifully flowing. So yeah, and you can be as bushy as you like. Some people like to be very, very tailored. Some people, like me, are a bit more Jamie Oliver, a bit more relaxed in our approach. So again, there's the little stalks there, and we're just going to lie it over like that. And you bring that wire over, and really nice and tight.
So when you're using twine, do you need to be a bit, make it a bit tighter than if you were, say, using floristry wire?
No, because I'd still be asking you to get that tension. And it's lovely. I much prefer working with it. It's much softer on your hands, this string. And it means that when you dismantle this all of it can go onto your compost heap. Or you can, what I do is I take it back out to the woods. And it's just lovely working with this beautiful smells. It's not surprising we love that smell of spruce. It's in all of our shower gels, our room spray, so we instinctively are calmed by that wonderful smell. And then with all the herbs. And you can do this all the way through the year. Yes, we're doing it for Christmas time, but wreaths are not just for Christmas, they're all year round. And so when you're walking in nature or you're looking at your garden, just do a lovely green wreath is absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, and it looks amazing just as it is.
Absolutely,
All the different
I normally
textures.
say, right, thanks very much, you can go now. And they're like, what?
Would you say the key is not to get too hung up on it all looking perfect as well, that because it is quite a wild design, that it's sort of, you're quite forgiving for the amateur florist.
That's why people love doing this, because you get such an amazing sense of achievement by the end of it, even if you felt that you didn't have a creative bone in your body at all. You gather beautiful nature. Nature is very supportive and non-judgmental. And then you will create something which you honestly just thought you'd never be able to achieve at all. And then you look back and think, oh my gosh, and you get that wonderful sense of achievement, which is so rare now. Everybody's zooming to the next meeting, there's always another deadline. But making your wreath, you can stand back and properly praise yourself for doing such an amazing job. And with any luck, your gorgeous family and friends will also be blown away by your amazingness. And if they're not, then they're no friends of yours. There you go.
Does this sort of start off the Christmas season for you, foraging and making a wreath?
It does. I mean, I'm literally dreaming about cinnamon sticks and orange slices. But I've created my business so that I can get out into nature, because I know for my own mind health, I have to get out into the woods as many times as I possibly can, definitely once a day. And if I don't, things start to, build up, and you start to get stressed I start to get stressed very quickly, multitasking, my little head going round and round and round. And the minute I get into the woods, everything is fine. Hop. There. Yeah, so the last one is just a little bit shorter. A little mini bouquet. We're just going to cut it just a little shorter, like a buttonhole. And then, so you've got your last piece you've done, and what you're doing is you're lifting up the canopy, and you're just going to reverse in, basically, slot it there, bring your twine over without pulling down the rest of it. You see, and then you're nuzzling it in. Three times, and then what I would suggest is just maybe this branch, just to bring it over to cover its tracks again. And then you have your gorgeous wreath, wonderfully smelling. And then we're going to turn it over, and we're going to cut piece like that, and then you'll be able to gather the green twine underneath, and use your scissors, if it's tricky, to, let's show you properly, poke it underneath, and then get that little end of string and pull it through like a sort of needle and thread. And tie, oh my gosh, your lovely knot. You can do it loads of times. It's just basically to make it secure. There. So that's the top. That's your lovely green. Matches your dress. So then we're going to clear the decks. You probably won't have very much left at all of the greenery. All shall be used in your beautiful wreath. Great. So as you're looking at it, you're going to imagine it's a clock. And so that's the top of your wreath. That's where all of your focal points are going to be. So just going to pop that to the side, and then I'm going to show you how to wire up all of our gorgeous Christmas ingredients. So this is where our wonderful green wire comes in. Nice and long. Longer the better. And it's a nice light wire too. You can get very strong, thick wire, but just find your lightest wire. So that's there.
And then you would get that from floristry
suppliers.
Yeah.
I would go online and just put in floristry wire. That's over 30 centimetres, let's say 12 inches long. And it will say the different weights on it in little grams, little mini grams. So just find the lightest one. Sadly, with all of these things, they come in like masses of packs of it. So, you know, if anybody wants some, I can post them to it. So here we are. I've chosen today lime slices, orange, apple, teasels, pine cones, and cinnamon sticks. I love using lime because you've got this wonderful white rind with the green edges there. And to wire up these lovely dried lime slices, you get your long wire, and instead of putting it in the middle, you're going to put the wire and come right down short, put it just where the rind meets the flesh there, and you're going to put a pair of. And you're going to bring the wire to the middle, and then you're going to fold it together. And if you hold the lime slices in one hand, bring them to the top there, and then just by the lime slices, you're going to twist it just really tightly a few times, only a few times, just by the lime. And wonderfully, I've got a whole bunch of them there. It's a wonderfully repetitive, calming experience making those. And so again, you're going to create, just as we did, we got everything ready at the same time. So there are your lime slices. Orange slices. Traditionally, the Seville oranges would be arriving by boat from Spain. And we would be making marmalades at this time of year. The reason why we made marmalades is because this wonderful citrus fruit is very high in vitamin C. So when all of our plums and apples, all of our British fruit have obviously been harvested, how do we keep ourselves healthy through the winter? And the best thing to do is to conserve and preserve into jams and marmalades. And so I love using oranges. Have a little whiff. Yeah, it's like Paddington Bear, isn't it? Gorgeous. So oranges are another wonderful, and the most beautiful colour against the green. Yeah. So again, we're just going to repeat that creative experience. So just where the rind starts to get to the fruit, the flesh there, you're going to put it through and put 2 in, feed it together, and then bring the wires together, and then hold onto the fruit in one hand and just do a couple of twists. Just there. Our Christmas ingredients. And then I love using apples. I love the way that when they dry, they have this lovely ripply edge and they look gorgeous in a wreath. And often you see the wonderful core as well. So I just love it as a detail. So again, there's your long wire. Pop it in just on the edge there. And the apple slices, because they're quite fleshy, they are maybe a little bit softer. So just be a tiny bit more gentle when you're wiring this. So if you wanted to actually just twist the wires together as opposed to rotating the whole thing, then you'll be protecting your lovely fruit. So there are your apples, gorgeous. Pine cones, love pine cones. I could stare at those all day long, and these are opening out because I brought them in and dried them on my radiators. So yes, we're going to wire the pine cone, and you've got these lovely gills here. We're going to get our wire in the middle of the wire. We're going to just drop it into the pine cone, and then we're going to bend it together, holding onto the pine cone. There's your two ends together. Hold on to the pine cone, hold on to your wire really near the pine cone, and then twist the pine cone. Twist the pine cone. So it will just do a little rotations just by, and in doing that you'll bring the wire into the pine cone for a really good secure fixing. And then we've got divine cinnamon sticks. We love cinnamon. Most gorgeous smell of Christmas. We use it in all of our mulled wines and all of our casseroles. This is actually from a cinnamon tree. The bark is curled just like this. And I use a pair, or two of cinnamon sticks because it just makes your wreath look a lot more opulent. And we're going to have this lovely green twine, which I've cut into these lengths. You get your two pieces of cinnamon stick and you wind and create a little parcel. And then you are going to tie it in a very strong double knot. I like the lovely relaxed raw knot, but you can always turn it over and use a much more tailored side, so it doesn't matter which way. And then we're going to use the wire again, and very cleverly, in between those two cinnamon sticks is a little gully, a little gap underneath the wires in between the two cinnamon sticks. And so again, you put your wire through, bring it into the middle, fold it in the middle, and then, yes, I would just twist the cinnamon stick, hold on to those two wires, and make a nice tight fixing there. So we've got all of our gorgeous ingredients. And then lastly, teasels. Teasels are the most beautiful. I love them so much. And although the tops look the scariest, it's this scary spiky stem which is flippin' lethal. So when we're working with teasels, either have gloves, and I often go around and help people at this point, but hold on to the teasel because actually it doesn't hurt at all. It's that scary stalk which you want to keep away from. But we're going to be adding those at the end. Now's the time to attach all our wonderful Christmas ingredients. There's 12 o'clock. I'm going to just suggest a sequence for you. It just helps you be able to lay it out so that you don't have like crammed areas and blank areas. So if it was a smaller wreath, we would do 3, and we're going to use 5 here. So if you imagine a clock face, that's 12 o'clock. We're then going to pop something at 2 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 8 o'clock, and 11 o'clock. So I'll show you as we get going. And the top one I would suggest is the orange, which is where your focal point, your eye goes to.
Is there a reason why you would have an odd number of bunches of decorations?
It's inspired by antiquity and classic architecture, that often on altars you would have a triptych. So you've got the central one flanked by the 2, let's say, hosts of angels or saints. And they repeat that. So you've got your central one and maybe 5. So what we're going to do is we're going to open the wires, and where you'd like to fix your first orange, you pop your orange on the top of the wreath, and then you're going to put one part of the wire inside and another part on the outside, and you're going to bring them together at the back of the wreath and twist them together really quite strongly. Don't worry, because right at the end we check everything and we clip off all of the extra wires. So you've brought it together, and I'm just going to push it into the wreath, nestle it into the wreath. The other reason I use 2 is that you can open them together, open them out like a butterfly's wing, So there's opening out like wings, or you can also splay them like a fan, which looks beautiful. So that is 12 o'clock. So we'll get the next one. And what you're doing is, if you had a lovely clump of greenery where you'd like to place your beautiful piece of fruit, try and go underneath a leaf, nestle it in, as opposed to covering the whole thing.
Does that sort of hide the wire?
Yes, as natural nestling as possible. And I'm just twisting it at the back, just 2 or 3 times, just so that I've got a nice purchase. And what we will do is we'll titivate and open out all of the lovely orange slices. So you've got nice spaces which we'll be able to fill with all the other ingredients. I would suggest you put pine cones. Again, you're opening the wires. I'm going to put the pine cone right in the middle of each orange slice. I'm going down there, 1 wire in the centre of the wreath, 1 wire on the outside of the wreath, bring them together under the wreath and twine them together. And what I would suggest is to have the pine cone facing the direction that we've started off with all of the greenery. The other thing that's lovely to do is to start to put things on the outer edge of your wreath. So I'm going to suggest you put the cinnamon sticks on the outer edge.
So you're sort of lining those up with the pine cones.
Yeah. You can decide to line them up with an orange slice, but the key thing is to try and line it up with the same fruit, so you know where you are. And then, yes, so the lovely thing about having 2 is that you can split them and make them into a kiss or a cross or a pair of skis. And so again, it just gives a little bit of interest to your wreath. So there's the pine cone. I'm going to go to the outer edge. Nice and tight, connecting to those wires.
And you can sort of move the wreath around quite a lot while you're doing it. It's robust enough that
it is a really chunky, healthy wreath. And then the lime slices, because of the white, they really bring your eye into the wreath. So I quite like to pop it in the centre of the wreath. And again, I'm just going to push it into there.
And all the fruit will last too, will it, right up till New Year?
Yes, because it's all dried, you see. I mean, it is quite telling that it is very, very mild out there. So they are designed to be in winter conditions, just petrified on the front of your front door. If it is absolutely chucking it and 18 degrees on Christmas Day, they might start to get a little bit more soggy than we would, but that is just to do with the environment, and it's so warm. But essentially, all of these things will stay exactly as they are. Brilliant. So that's where we are at the moment. We've got apple slices, which again I'm going to put on the outer edge, and then the teasels. And then we will turn the whole thing over, which goes against all of your wreath protection, but it's totally fine. And then we'll tie off all of the wires and then poke them back into the wreath so that they don't hurt your front door. So again, I'm going to come out to the outer edge, which makes your wreath look a little bit larger. And again, your eye goes, just like the citrus colour in the line, your eye goes to that lovely paler apple on the outer edge. Great. So there's your apples, all of your lovely fruit, very sort of Scandinavian.
Yeah, the colours are amazing, aren't they?
You can see why the oranges are, just pick out your eyes. And then we're just going to finish off by doing the scary teasels. So you've got this wonderful nest now of greenery. So what I would suggest, holding on to the alarmingly not very scary spiky top, you're just going to come underneath and you're just going to pop it into the greenery, and using that wonderful on the slant direction of your gorgeous wreath, it will just give a lovely dimension to your wreath.
You don't need to secure those.
No,
further,
and they just get
stay in
popped
place.
in. Yep. And again, you're really pushing them quite far in. So if you need to chop the stalk, I would chop it just on the point, on the diagonal, so that it's like an arrow that you're popping it in. Now we're going to just trim off the back of all those lovely wires. And it's a good way just to double check you've got a nice twist in your wires there. And so you get your scissors, because they're nice light wires, they're very easy to cut. So you don't need necessarily wiring scissors. So all you're doing is you're just double checking your handiwork, giving it a few more twists, and then cutting it off maybe to 1 centimetre. And I do sometimes forget how it is actually quite an experience making a wreath. You know, got to sing for your supper. But then you do get that amazing sense of achievement at the end. Yeah. So here we go. Great. And then I'm just going to bend everything into the wreath. It either goes into the willow base or it just curls towards the wreath. So it won't hurt your front door or your table. Perfect. It's all nice and soft now. So that is the top.
Beautiful.
Yes, and just two last things I was going to suggest, purely optional. One is illuminations. Wow. It's very easy. This is the new kid on the block, which is a very small battery base. And the most important thing, which I know everyone knows, is it must be warm white lights, so candlelight kind of colouring.
So those are micro lights, aren't they?
They are called battery operated fairy lights. And these ones are on wire, so you can really enjoy making it absolutely beautiful. So what I would suggest is, if you're looking at your wreath, how are you going to turn it on and off at night? Are you right-handed or left-handed? And probably just sort of on the right-hand side. So I'm going to find a little bit of the twine, and I'm just going to tuck in that battery there. And then I'm going to bring the wires over. There you go. Bring the wires over. And the key is just to wind it around all of the fruit. And what's really gorgeous at night is if you wind it into all of the fruit slices, it just illuminates the fruit at night. Of course, even though I've wound it up beautifully, it's already got itself in a tangle, but it's okay.
And will those be okay if it rains? Those?
Yes, these are completely outdoor suitable. And it does have a tiny little disc battery in it, which you can replace. So many's the time I've loved my wreath lit, but I've also gone to bed without and forgotten to turn it off. But you can just literally, there's a little pack at the back, which you just slip open, and you can pop another one of those circular batteries in it to replenish. Great, so I'm going to go through. It's almost invisible. You can be as
you can't see the
elaborate as
wires
you
at
like,
all,
no.
can you?
And just try and get it in between those orange slices.
So pretty.
You can see how it picks it out.
Yeah.
Absolutely divine. And then, as a little secret ingredient, completely optional because your wreath does smell gorgeous. However, because your front door wafts forward and back, welcoming your friends and family in, it is a lovely idea to just accentuate the beautiful smell. And in my experience, this is the one I love so much, and it's called Winter by the White Company, and it has all of the ingredients which is in your wreath. So it's orange, cinnamon, and spruce. And what I suggest is, this is the room spray, which you can use in the rest of your house, but just spray it on the woody pine cones. That's all you need to do, because they will hold that essence. And then you get this wonderful waft of Christmas. And then finally, most important discussion.
Yes.
Obviously
to bow
known
or
to
not
man.
to bow.
Yeah, to bow or not to bow. Again, I love to use natural colours to enhance the wreath colours. And I know it's a tricky one, isn't it? After a while, when you've created such beauty, you don't know whether you want to sort of trap it with a bow. But there is a lovely way of doing it, which is putting tails below it. I'll show you that.
I suppose if your door's not protected, you might not want to use a bow at all.
True.
If it rains, you can't really protect it.
So you can pull it through, wind it in between all your lovely ingredients. Make a bow. This lovely ribbon is a shot taffeta and it's wired on the edge. And there's this wonderful word called primping, which the Victorians introduced because they love ribbons on their bonnets. So it's got this wonderful shot to it. So then you've got your ribbons and then you do this. That's what primping is.
So you need wired ribbons.
So wired ribbon, yeah. And it has that wonderful ripple effect.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Katie. That's
My pleasure.
Absolutely wonderful. Thank you. And now we're just going to join Lady Leicester and Catherine Zoll to have a look at some of the decorations around the hall. So I'm here in Holkham Hall with Lady Leicester and Christmas connoisseur Catherine Zoll. Together they design the amazing Christmas decorations throughout the hall each year. Right now we're in the South Dining Room. Lady Leicester, can you tell me a bit about the theme for this room?
I think this was a sort of homage to the Queen, really, and all things royal and Jubilee. Yeah, as you can see, the red, white and blue, lots of different textures. We've got this wonderful present tree here, which we'll probably talk about in a minute because that was quite hard to make and assemble. But yeah, just the sort of balance of the props as well as important. So
yeah. How do you get that balance within a room? What are you thinking about?
I think we're thinking about the shapes, the heights of things and the shapes. So we would stand at the back and look at it and make sure that the higher things are at the sides, and then it sort of goes down into the middle, and then you want to let people see this as well. So to make sure there's not too much stuff in front of that.
So this is such a great, impactful display. These paper decorations are a great way to just make a big statement without having to spend too much money, aren't they?
Yeah, we use these time and again. They come in such fantastic colours and different scales and shapes, and they're really fun. You can use them through the year as well for kids' parties as well as at Christmas. So it's quite a fun theme, red, white and blue for Christmas. It goes actually really beautifully with the green trees. So yeah, really, really fun one.
Yeah, but it's got that nostalgic feel too, doesn't it? Very English. Yeah. And can you tell me a bit about this amazing tree of Christmas presents? How did you come up with that idea and how did you put it together?
I think we came up with that idea probably from Pinterest or something like that, but also from finding some really beautiful quality wrapping paper from a company in Cambridge. I think it's really important that every present is wrapped absolutely beautifully. The corners have to be tight. Obviously inside is just boxes that are not wrapped, so the back is not, it's just cardboard.
And how are they sort of attached together?
Gravity and a little bit of adhesive.
Yeah. And then we wanted to put the paper bow, so the lovely lady that helped us with this, so she went off and looked on YouTube, because these days you can find out how to do anything, it's amazing. It's not like the old days. So she sat down with some spare paper and came up with that.
Really clever.
And then when it comes to decorating the fir trees as well, we have two lovely ones in this room. Do you have any tips for getting that nice balance of baubles and decorations, and if you do have a colour theme, for example, how you decorate the tree so that it all looks balanced and good?
Yeah, so put the lights on first, make sure they're the right colour and that they work, get those on, and then make sure you've got a range of sizes and textures. So it's predominantly baubles on these trees, but we've got some flocked ones, some shiny ones, some matte ones, some glittery ones. You can fill gaps in the Christmas tree with the bigger baubles. That's really good. And also, if you take the little strings off and actually use wire, you can bring the bauble up to the branch, which actually gives it much more definition than having them all sort of swishing around. So.
And can you tell me a bit about this lovely sleigh over here?
Yes, so the sleigh is a sort of reoccurring theme, and we decorate it differently every time. Quite often in a house like this, when we're sort of stuck for ideas, we go and raid the cellars and attics and the farm buildings, and this was found at the farm buildings. I think it was the 3rd Earl's sleigh. I think we've had it in our Christmas display for 13 years every year. And it's just rather a lovely story, and we're just very lucky because you never know what you can find in inspiration from, and just wandering around and finding things that we can use year on year has been a real bonus.
And Catherine, can you tell me how this amazing paper cake was put together?
Yeah, so we wanted to sort of play on the idea of a street party. So we've got sort of a range of different cakey props and picnic things and this wonderful pottery. And we worked with a fantastic lady, Alice King, who made us this brilliant paper cake. Yeah, it just adds a bit of fun to the room, really, and a centrepiece.
Lovely centrepiece that you could use again as well, isn't
exactly.
it? It looks very summery as well.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks very much. On to the next room. We're currently in the south drawing room, which has been transformed into this amazing woodland scene. Lady Leicester, could you tell me about the concept for this room?
Yes, this Holkham estate is very much a rural estate, so there's lots of wonderful woods and woodlands and trees, and we're always kind of coming across great clumps of moss and tree stumps. So we sort of pulled all those ideas together, and we decided to do a moss room. So this room has been temporarily named the Moss Room, and we've done a variety of objects. So we've got the stand over the table, and we've got a whole sort of little woodland tablescape going on down the middle instead of just having candles and flowers. We've got the old chairs which we bought in a junk shop and have covered in moss and mushrooms. We're slightly obsessed with mushrooms. They come up every year, different colours and forms. And then we've got the moss tree over there, which we'll probably come to talk about in a minute.
Yes. So when it comes to the dining table setting, the frame is a particularly great idea at Christmas, isn't it, Catherine, when there isn't so much room on the table because there's so much food. But if you want to decorate the table a bit, this is a great way of getting some decorations in kind of above eye level.
Exactly that, yeah. If you don't have a dining table quite as grand as this, then you can put it on, any size dining table, and it just gives you another area to decorate.
And they're expandable, aren't they?
Yeah.
So you can buy the stands on eBay, and then you can choose your width.
Yeah, exactly. And it means that also the decorations are sort of elevated away from the guests, so you can still look through and talk to the people opposite you rather than the middle of the table being filled with decorations.
And so what have you used for the actual table settings here? The kind of plates and the presents that you've wrapped as a little sort of plus one piece.
So it's all about the detail. So we spend a lot of time staring at the table and wondering what it needs to make it perfect. So we've got some lovely linen placemats, which are mine. I have a cupboard full of lovely things for slightly obsessed with tablescapes, and they always get raided for Christmas. So we've chosen sort of a goldy cutlery. We've got some old antique glasses from the glass cupboard, so you can mix and match glasses. And then we like the texture of the velvet ribbon on the white presents as well. And
then you have a mix of sort of tea lights and LED candles, which again, that's great for this time of year, isn't it? When you don't necessarily want to be lighting hundreds of candles.
Yeah, and we really like the form of the candle, not in a storm lantern. And obviously, if it's not in a storm lantern, that needs to be LED lit in here. So, but then the lovely twinkle of the little tea lights in the gold as well.
Yeah. And we've got this sort of moss candlesticks in there too. How did you create those?
Yeah, those are fun.
Yeah.
So we wanted to do some, have some sort of moss silhouettes. So we thought the candlesticks were a really good shape for that. So some of the volunteers helped us with that. So really just gluing it on, and it was tricky because it doesn't glue that well, and lots of bits come off. But I think they've done it really well. So again, it's not too compact. It's nice and sort of free fall.
And again, that was an idea that came to us from sort of browsing, mood boards and things and different ideas. And they're sort of secondhand candlesticks from a junk shop, not too expensive, that doesn't really matter. And then next year we'll probably take them off and do something else with them. So they're really flexible.
Yeah.
But they add a bit of drama to the table.
Yes. And can we talk about the moss tree here, which is really amazing? How did you create that?
Well, I think that was again inspired by that. We've got a stumpery up at the wall garden with lots of incredible old stumps. So that was going to be the base. And then the structure we built in-house, which was chicken wire and then covered with papier-mâché so that we had a surface to glue the moss to. As we said earlier, you could have a little moss tree on your table. You could have 3 little moss trees, so you could make them much easier to make if they were small. And then just decorated with a sort of, we obviously left a gap where we were then wired in. We had sort of wire like hairpins, and we sort of jabbed it into the papier-mâché to keep the red and green glittery garland on there. But that was tricky.
So effective. Great. Well, thank you. And on to the next room. So we're here in the last room, which is the beautiful saloon, and we're going to talk about this spectacular mantelpiece decoration. Lady Leicester, can you tell me a bit about this room and the theme that you were going for here?
Yeah, I think every year we have a sort of similar arrangement because we want to have the wonderful big tree, and we just change the colour schemes. So this year is really bright sort of jewel colours. We've got kingfisher blue, navy blue, pinks, greens, and we've sort of echoed that with all the different picks, and I think it really goes well with the painting actually, so that's a bit of a bonus. And
it's such a beautiful mantelpiece display. Catherine, do you have some tips for how you can have something like this on your mantelpiece and make it stay in place?
Yeah, so obviously we can't attach anything to the marble mantelpiece, and we really need to be really careful of the painting and the wallpaper. We can't use any glues or adhesives or wires. So we've built some wooden boxes which sit on the mantelpiece. We weight them down with bricks and gravel, and we use rolled chicken wire inside so that you can poke the artificial foliage, or if you were using real, you could use real. And that tray would also act as somewhere for the water. So yeah, we poke the items through the chicken wire, and they work really, really well.
And that means you don't need to use Oasis or those artificial materials.
Yeah, absolutely. We've removed the use of Oasis from the staterooms. It's just such a horrible material. And actually the mantelpieces still look fantastic. We attach a wire to the front of the box so that you can attach a layer of fur to the front to hide the wooden box. And you can also use that to hang from as well.
Yeah. And we also waterproof inside the box.
Right, yeah. And can you tell me a bit about the different types of faux foliage and flowers that you have here? Yeah,
I think you said we have a different mixture of really textures is really important. So the different textures of the ribbon and the baubles. Some of the picks are sort of velvety, some are sparkly. You've got the sparkly gold picks. You've got the sort of essential colour scheme which is reflected on the tree, and yeah.
We start off with a layer of green to get the sort of the base right, and then into that, so the ivies and the firs, which are sort of more traditional Christmas foliage, and then we add in the sort of coloured picks and the metallics as well.
And do you have any tips for getting this beautiful shape for your mantelpiece display?
Yeah, I think you don't want it to be too straight, so you want to have sort of soft corners coming down, so it's not just a sort of long rectangle, and then you want to kind of open it all up and not have the picks sort of too jammed in too tight. You've got to try and make the ones on the right kind of go that way, the ones on the left go that way, so you have this sort of frame feeling with sort of droopy endings, so to speak.
So much movement.
Yeah.
And then the baubles too, as a kind of finishing touch.
Yeah, and different levels,
Different
that's
levels.
nice.
Yeah, and the different coloured ribbons is such a nice touch as well.
And so easy to do, and again, removing the ball hanging bit and just putting the ribbons on. It gives you, we do that with most of our baubles. We take the actual thing it comes with off, and we put wire so that you can actually wire them in a position as opposed to they're sort of hanging.
Right, yeah. And are these are hanging from the wire that's attached to the front of the box?
Yeah, so those are attached to the wire that hangs, is on the front of the box, so that they don't move at all. If we put them on the fur, then they could well just sort of drop down a bit.
Yeah, Yeah, and then the fairy lights, which is such a lovely finishing touch, are those plug-in lights?
Yes, we have so many lights in the hall that we need to plug them in. We put them on timers so that at the beginning of the day they all switch on, and those are put on at the end.
Thank you very much to Lady Leicester, Catherine Zoll and Katie Haydn-Slater. Hopefully you've made a beautiful wreath and learned some tips for decorating your own home. If you'd like to watch this masterclass again, you can do from tomorrow on the Telegraph Live YouTube channel. Thanks everyone for watching and have a very Merry Christmas.